So glad that you're with us today. The Northwest Minnesota Foundation was born from the farm crisis of the 1980s, a time when communities, families, farms, and so much of the way of life in the region looked very bleak. The foundation was created through the generosity of the McKnight Foundation and the resiliency and commitment of leaders throughout the region. Today, we confront a crisis of a different sort, COVID-19 pandemic, and subsequent public health and economic crisis that has stretched beyond 2020 and continues to affect the region today. At the Northwest Minnesota Foundation, we have not forgotten our history, and we continue to be here to serve our purpose of building better lives for those who call the region home. This is our why, and we are honored and privileged to work alongside you, our partners, donors, and community leaders, to work every day to help lift up communities, businesses, entrepreneurs, individuals, children, and families. The Northwest Minnesota Foundation would not be here today if not for the enduring support from the McKnight Foundation. Since 1986, the McKnight Foundation has contributed over $56 million to Northwest Minnesota and over $300 million to rural Minnesota, an amazing legacy. With McKnight's support, the 6 Minnesota Initiative Foundations were the first in the nation to gain approval from the IRS to conduct lending as a charitable activity. This approval was very important during the farm crisis of the 1980s. In 1997, the Northwest Minnesota Initiative Fund became the Northwest Minnesota Foundation, enabling us to hold philanthropic funds and serve as a community foundation for the region. In our latest fiscal year 2020, 48% of the foundation's resources came from public support. Our forever beliefs begin with our vision. Northwest Minnesota will be a place where communities and people work together to foster opportunity, promote philanthropy, and enrich the lives of all residents. Making the region a better place to live and work has been our mission for a very long time. It started long ago with quality of place, a belief that a significant part of our work should always be about strengthening communities and helping communities build community assets, a belief we still hold today. Our core values, strategic collaboration. We are passionate leaders committed to bringing a sense of true partnership to all that we do. We will ask who else can and should be involved here, and use our ability as an unbiased organizer to bring the right parties to the table to address critical issues. Integrity and responsibility. We are careful stewards of the resources entrusted to us. We approach every action asking what is the right thing to do here, and boldly making a difference. Our promise is to understand the challenges and opportunities in the region and to step into all situations with courage, empathy, and a focus on delivering impactful solutions. We came out of our strategic planning with 3 core themes: how are our children, community-driven economic development, and donor-centered philanthropy. But we are a complex organization, and I think it is sometimes difficult for even our closest partners to understand us. We've put together this graphic to hopefully make it a little bit more clear. You can think of the foundation as having 2 sides to our house. One side is our philanthropy side. Here we house 388 component funds that help support philanthropic initiatives throughout the region. Some of these are community-centric funds, some are scholarship funds, and some are donor-advised funds. Together, these 388 component funds have 33 million in endowed assets, and these funds pay out typically between $2 and $3 million a year in grants, scholarships, and mission-related expenses. The decision-making for these funding decisions lives with the communities and the donors themselves, and we support these efforts through our philanthropic services team. The other side of our house is our programs. Here we have close to 32 million in endowed assets. So the 2 sides are actually quite close in endowed assets, but that's really not by design. That's just how it's evolved over the years. And here too, we typically send out $2 million a year in grants, loans, and direct technical assistance into the region. This is done through our 6 programs: children and families, childcare, homelessness, entrepreneur and small business development, communities thrive, and housing. And the decision-making for these priorities and funding decisions lives with the Foundation's board of directors and staff. And then we have the foundation for our foundation, the capabilities that we need to operate robustly: finance and administration, communications, and a relatively new focus for us: advocacy. Looking at the House as a whole, our impact since inception in 1986 has been 9,207 grants totaling $44 million, 781 loans totaling $30 million, and creating or retaining over 3,200 jobs. Which brings me to our fiscal year 2020, which ended June 30th, 2020. Our total assets for the end of fiscal year 2020 were over $83 million, up from close to $80 million at the end of fiscal year 2019, with total net assets close to $76 million. The Foundation's total endowed assets, both sides of the house, were over $65 million at the end of fiscal year 2020. And I'll try not to cause people's eyes to glaze over as we look at some additional fiscal year 2020 financial information. The key here is that our largest contributors to our revenues and support are program-related revenues, such as external grants that we receive, and our investment income. The investment income can swing from year to year as the market's ups and downs, but our other revenue sources stay pretty consistent from year to year. Our total revenues and support for fiscal year 20 were $9.3 million. Our total expenses for fiscal year 2020 were just over $7 million. We work hard to keep our administration and fundraising expenses low, just 18% of our total expenses, so that as much money as is possible can help in the region. So my next slides are about the philanthropy side of the house, the 388 component funds we help support. The 388 component funds have just over 36 million in assets, and in FY20, they received $2.1 million in donations. They paid out almost $2.5 million into the region. Of the $2.5 million paid out into the region, 64% of that was 13% in scholarships, and 23% in mission-related. A great example of community philanthropy this past year is from Ada Borup. The Ada Borup Community Fund, a component fund of the Northwest Minnesota Foundation, and the City of Ada raised funds to match a grant from the DECO Foundation to support substantial updates at the Tony Sipe Athletic Field in Ada. These improvements included a new electronic scoreboard, refurbishment of infield and outfield bleachers, new fencing, and some work on the field. Donor advised giving is managed through mostly donor advised funds and designated funds. And many of these funds really stepped up during the COVID-19 pandemic, providing grants for food security, distance learning, senior supports, and general operating for nonprofits throughout the region. And scholarship season is now upon us with our online scholarship portal just opening yesterday. Betty Murray has left a lasting legacy with her scholarship fund at the Northwest Minnesota Foundation. She was a beloved teacher at the Bemidji Middle School who wanted to give back and provide opportunities for students of the Bemidji School District. Her passion for teaching and music helped her leave a legacy that continues to inspire others. Betty believed that students should turn their passions into careers. I want to take a moment to thank all of our donors, fund advisors, committee members, and everyone who supports and nurtures the power of philanthropy throughout the region. We are honored and privileged to work alongside you to build better lives for those who call the region home. And now I'll be moving to the other side of the house, the program side. One of the programs we added with our most recent strategic framework is to grow the capacity of quality childcare in the region. But before I share a little bit about what the Northwest Minnesota Childcare Collaborative has been doing, I want to give a big shout out to the many childcare professionals across the region. Like many sectors, the childcare industry has been disrupted in the COVID-19 pandemic. Many childcare businesses saw a reduction in income while having an increase in expenses due to the need to put in place safety and cleaning measures. And many had to weigh the risks to their own families with having the increased exposure in their homes during the pandemic. The Northwest Minnesota Child Care Collaborative launched their child care resources this past year. This included a dedicated webpage with county and tribal nation specific information on how to start a child care business and this recruitment video, which I'll show. This video has been viewed 841 times, and the website has had over 400 unique visitors. And I want to thank the collaboration partners, Child Care Aware, Mojave Ottawa, First Children's Finance, Tri-Valley Opportunity Council, MinTrek, Red Lake Nation, and White Earth Child Care. Now I'll show the video. Hopeful, no technology issues here.
Northwest Minnesota is facing a child care crisis. That's a secret code word for trouble, I think. Word around town is that there's almost 3,000 child care spots that are needed. That's a big number. And infant care is really hard to find. My family is thankful that we found someone like Tracy to open a child care business in her home. You might not realize it now, but she's helping to shape our world every day. We call it playing, but my mom says it's so much more than that.
Hi, I'm Tracy, and I own Tracy's Childcare in Mahnomen. I started daycare because I was pregnant with my twins, and I started calling around probably the minute we found out we were expecting, and I would say I called 10 or more providers and we were not able to find any room for infants. I probably get calls on a weekly basis for parents asking, just even a range of kids, whether it's newborn to preschool age for childcare, and there's a big need, especially around here.
My friend Charlie goes to Nicole's Child Care Center. He said that everyone there is super fun. Sounds like she's busy shaping worlds too.
I'm Nicole Cook, the owner and director of the Clubhouse Child Care Center in McIntosh, Minnesota. I have been in the child care business for 6 years. I opened up my own home daycare 6 years ago, mainly so that I could still be with my kids all day and touch the lives of other kids. And then about 2 years after that, we decided there was such a need, and I had a really hard time saying no to so many people coming to me for childcare. And I looked at my husband and I said, we need to do something. One of the biggest benefits for being a childcare provider is knowing the different ways that I can help shape the lives of kids every day. We have a lot of our kids here, they love being Clubhouse kids and they love the connections that they've made with their teachers. And I have so many of the kids say, Miss Nicole, how old do I have to be to work here? Miss Nicole, when I turn 16, will you hire me? I want to be a toddler teacher. Well, I want to be a preschool teacher. They all want to come back here to our Clubhouse family that they've become such a huge part of. People think that being in the childcare business is sticky, while slimy is more like it.
I heard it takes a very special person to be a child care provider, someone that wants to help build bright futures. I think kids just want to hang out with someone that is fun and has good snacks. That's kind of a deal breaker. But with a 30% drop in providers throughout the state in the last decade, it's becoming harder to find quality child care. That's why people like Joan are stepping up to help providers start their very own child care business.
My name is Joan Burnson. I work with First Children's Finance in the 12 counties of northwestern Minnesota, and I'm part of the Northwest Minnesota Child Care Collaborative. We are here to be able to help provide the tools, not only for potential new providers, but also for seasoned providers. It might be that they need training, or they need loans, or they need to find a way to connect with other providers. So our role is really to help the existing providers continue to provide high-quality childcare, and then bring new providers into the field and help them see the impact that they can have on helping children learn about the world and grow and develop in really great ways.
Want to help shape worlds like mine? Become a child care provider in Northwest Minnesota. Because kids like me are counting on people like you.
We launched a child care finance program in fiscal year 2019. This program provides forgivable loans to child care businesses starting up or increasing capacity, and low interest loans to existing child care businesses in need of capital. In FY20, we provided $68,000 in forgivable loans and $30,000 in low interest loans. The Child Care Finance Program created 222 new slots and retained 71 existing slots. Northwest Minnesota has historically had very few child care centers. Most of the child care businesses in the region are family licensed child care providers and not centers. But many communities across the region are working with Northwest Minnesota Child Care Collaborative partners to help find creative solutions to the tricky business model for child care centers in more rural communities. Some communities have opened new centers, Hallock, Kelleher, and Bemidji, and others are planned to open soon, Crookston, Boston, and Halston. Since we started tracking the child care capacity in the region from the data for licensed child care providers from the counties and the Minnesota Department of Human Services, the region has added 1,554 new slots. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, we were starting to see the gap between available and needed child care slots go down. Of course, the pandemic has resulted in more child care business closures, so that gap will have widened again, unfortunately. Another newer program for the Foundation, Children and Families, has partnered with Indigenous Visioning and Barb Faber to develop parent supports and parent-led community projects. The White Earth Tribal and Community Colleges Parent as Leaders, PALS grant proposal was designed to create a learning experience to develop more civic leaders within the White Earth Reservation communities, while enhancing Indigenous protective factors and resiliency to prevent physical, mental, and behavioral health disparities by utilizing strong decision-making, traditional belief, and value systems of the Anishinaabe. The PALS project held 8 3-hour sessions over an 8-week time frame for up to 20 families for the parent and child. The classes started in September and ended in November. The Red Lake Immersion Program is building a foundation for language and cultural education and serves preschool children and their families residing on or near Red Lake Reservation. This is a parent-led community project that will assist in mentorship, community voice, and expressing confidence in sharing their visions for community change. In FY20, our housing program funded 4 grants totaling $20,000. These projects were in Clearbrook and Gonvick, Mahnomen, and Gary. One grant went to Greater Minnesota Management for a project that covers most of the region. We funded 1 loan through the housing program at $125,000. The Northwest Minnesota Foundation serves as a collaborative applicant for the Northwest Minnesota Continuum of Care. The Northwest COC is a collaboration of many organizations, agencies, and service providers from across the region that serve those experiencing homelessness and housing instability. We provide backbone support for the Northwest COC for federal HUD funding and for state Minnesota Housing Finance Agency funding. The foundation also funded 4 grants totaling $50,000 to support emergency and day shelter capacity. Northwest Minnesota currently has a youth homeless demonstration project grant from HUD and a companion grant from the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. These grants are to support youth ages 16 to 24 to access housing assistance in their area. Key agencies supporting the youth are Northwest Indian Community Development Center, Evergreen Youth and Family Services, Intercounty Community Council, Mahabi Atwa, Northwest Community Action, Tri-Valley Opportunity Council, and Red Lake Homeless Shelter. In an effort to further assist youth, the collaborative is turning to technology. The MyPath website is in beta testing and will be launched shortly. This website will provide accessible information to youth on available services and supports near them. We'd like to show the video that's been created to share this resource with the youth.
Navigating through life can be hard, especially without the support and resources you need. And finding housing is one of the most difficult challenges youth face. Just know that you're not alone. The MyPath website can help you find those resources. Everyone has their own path. Take Sam, for instance. He needs to leave his house and is wondering what to do next. He searches online for a place to stay and comes across MyPath, so he clicks to learn more. MyPath, one step at a time. He thinks to himself.
What's MyPath? And how can they help me? I can't stay here long. I need to get a job. I need help finding documents, my birth certificate, or getting a driver's license. Where do I find food? How do I figure this out all by myself? And what do I do next?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Sam browses the MyPath website and finds a variety of resources that could help, such as housing options, emergency shelters, employment opportunities, places to find food, childcare, mental health support, and much more. He quickly realizes he's found just what he's been looking for, and that MyPath has the support and resources he needs. If you or someone you know is experiencing homelessness, let them know that they can find help on the MyPath website to get them on the right path. MyPath, one step at a time. Always remember that you are not alone.
In fiscal year 2019, we launched the Communities Thrive program and selected Halstead and Warroad to receive support through the program for 2 years. With Communities Thrive, we provided a mix of flexible grant, lending, and technical assistance to help make the community's vision a reality. Better lives are built as the community invests in improved amenities and enjoys an improved quality of life. Both communities have seen a flurry of activity as a result. In Halstead, $100,000 in grant funding was provided by the foundation to support trail and park improvements and the Sugar Beet sculpture, city comprehensive planning and marketing and promotion of Halstead, and a remodel to accommodate a child care center, and 2 loans for almost $250,000. In Warroad, $100,000 in grant funding was given for safe harbor planning, the Lao Assistance Center and Millennium Lao Association, community events and activities, folk school, benches, and Best of Warroad map project for walkable downtown, and American Indian education programming, and 2 loans totaling $125,000. The Northwest Minnesota Foundation supports entrepreneurs and small businesses through a number of resources: the Small Business Administration Microloan Program, the Small Business Development Center Network, and our own idea competition. Between the technical assistance provided to microloan borrowers and the individual consulting provided by the Northwest SBDC, the foundation combined for over 6,600 hours of assistance to the region's small businesses, a service sorely needed during this very challenging year. And even though we could not hold our idea competition banquet this year, 4 winners were selected and provided cash and in-kind awards. A past winner, LaValle Industries and partnering companies, provided in-kind service awards to selected businesses. The 4 winners of the idea competition were Muskox, Ron Bergman won $15,000, and Moonlit Analytics, Michael Hendricks, Table for 7, Amberlyn Cooper, and F&H Design, Tim Hallberg and Marty Feel. They each won smaller awards. Thank you to all of our idea competition sponsors shown here. 100% of their sponsorship goes directly to the winners in a cash award. We couldn't do the idea competition without them, so thank you. The microlending team has had back-to-back record years. With the flurry of the state's Small Business Emergency Loan Program in April to June, we surpassed $1.5 million in dollars lent in fiscal year 2020, a total of 113 loans. An amazing level of lending activity in just a few short months. A huge thank you to the team for all of the effort. And all through this, we've been advocating for the region and keeping rural needs and issues front and center with state legislators. We encouraged all throughout the region to get counted in the 2020 census. Nate Dorr, our Vice President for Advocacy, wrote letters to the editor, and we shared about the census on social media and paid for social media boosts in communities often undercounted in the census. We actively promoted Minnesota's vote by mail as a viable option to participate in our democracy during this global pandemic. The murder of George Floyd on May 25th and losing Officer Cody Holty in the line of duty on May 27th upended our world. My brother taught Cody at Norman County West and shared with me that Cody was one of his favorites. We are humbly reminded again and again that there's still so much work to be done to prevent violence and to create a just and equitable society. The Northwest Minnesota Foundation issued a statement on May 30th. To follow up words with action, we provided grants to the Community Foundation of Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, and region, and Voices for Racial Justice, and we joined the Minnesota Philanthropic Collective to combat anti-Blackness and realize racial justice. And we are a firm believer that change starts at home. In FY20, working with our consultant Team Dynamics, we started our own intercultural development journey with the Intercultural Development Inventory. All board and staff have participated, and we look for ways to improve our work. And much of fiscal year 2020 was in preparation to completely overhaul our software systems with a go-live date of July 1, 2020. I'd like to acknowledge the Herculean task this was, especially for our philanthropic services team, and thank our entire staff for all of the hard work. It wasn't without its hiccups, but in all, we've had a relatively smooth transition and are making improvements daily. And we are receiving positive feedback from our customers who are enjoying the better capabilities of this new system. Our old system really was on its last leg, and we needed to make this investment for the future of the organization. Much of our program work is guided by logic models we've created with our third-party evaluation consultant, Wilder Research. This evaluation effort will continue to improve how we assess the impact of our work and hold ourselves accountable to the trust placed in us. An important part of this effort is asking our customers for their feedback. This past year, we asked 84 past and current grant, loan, and idea competition applicants to tell us how we did in serving them. We use this feedback to improve our communications with applicants. And we are now designing additional surveys for COVID-19 grant and business applicants. I'd like to close out this presentation with information around the real story of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic. First, I'd like to express my heartfelt sympathies for anyone who has lost a loved one to this virus. I am so sorry for your loss. And to those who are suffering long-term health issues due to this illness, we hope that each day brings better news. Thank you to all of the healthcare workers, frontline and essential workers, teachers, childcare providers, and to everyone who has put themselves at risk to support others. We all owe you a debt of gratitude we can probably never repay. Thank you so much for your sacrifice. And to those who have been impacted due to the devastating economic consequences of this pandemic, we are sorry for your suffering. At the foundation, we went completely to remote office work on March 16th. We created a COVID-19 resource page with information for businesses, childcare providers, and nonprofits. And we launched a survey to all in the region asking what impact the COVID-19 shutdown was having. The survey highlighted income loss and food and housing insecurity as the most pressing needs. On March 20th, our board of directors seeded and launched the Northwest Minnesota Emergency Disaster Recovery Fund with $100,000 so we could rapidly deploy grant funding. Thank you to the many donors and foundations who contributed to the fund. Following what we learned through the survey responses, our first round of grants targeted food and housing insecurity. To share a few of the stories from the nonprofit grantees, we've created this video. These are just a few of the many, many stories across the region as nonprofits, businesses, childcare providers, and all of us adjusted while working and living during a global pandemic. But before we get to the video, I'd like to highlight a few items from our COVID-19 dashboard. This is a culmination of our COVID efforts since March. Through multiple grant rounds, we've provided $392,000 to nonprofits and agencies in the region serving those impacted by the pandemic. And through multiple grant rounds, we've provided $393,000 to childcare providers in direct grants, helping them to keep their business open during these challenging times. To date, the foundation has allocated $283,000 for these grants, and we have leveraged another $866,000 from other foundations, state resources, and generous donors. We anticipate additional grant rounds in the near future. For businesses, we've provided over $3.5 million in loans and grants from state resources and from generous donors. And now I'll show this video.
How is the Emergency Fund Grant helping you serve the community?
Well, it's helping us stay open, and that's the most important thing. There's no the access to essential services are really limited, and it's us alone for a lot of people. And so the fact that it can keep us open, this is good gap funding for us while we wait for larger grants to come through to keep us open longer throughout the COVID crisis. But this is really essential gap funding because everything we can do now is preventative, and we're really, really grateful for it.
But at our college, most of our classes are delivered in person. So coming to the campus every day is really a big part of going to college there. We offer daily support services for our students. We provide meals on campus for our students. There's a lot of things that happen to support our students on campus. Some students even would come to the college on days when they didn't even have classes, just to have that supportive environment. It's a safe place to go for everybody, and we know everybody on a first name basis. They know us as far as the staff and administration that's there. So we're really like a big family that comes together there, and whatever is going on with a student at their home, they know they can come to the college and be safe and be supported there. So our campus offered a lot of security and support services. Unfortunately, when COVID started, we completely closed on March 16th. We had to cancel that first week of classes, and we were kind of lucky because the next week was actually a scheduled spring break anyway. So that gave us 2 weeks, and we transitioned all of our staff to telework. They've been all home working, and we moved all of our classes online. So every aspect of our college changed literally in a matter of just a couple days. We're pleased that we were able to keep all of our staff employed. We did have to give some new duties and things that they couldn't keep busy on campus, obviously, anymore, but we were able to keep all of our staff employed. And many of our staff right now are spending their day reaching out to students, because that's our focus is student retention and trying to get students through the next couple weeks yet left of the semester. So we're on the phone, we're on emails, and we're even catching them on social media and trying everything that we can to keep students engaged. It's such a difficult time for all of us right now, and at the college, especially, we're dealing with students who were only an alternator away from dropping out of school before anyway. And then you throw this crisis, a pandemic, where the whole world is impacted by it. And so we know that school is probably one of the things that is going to be at the top of the list to be given up when things get going too tough. So we're trying really hard to continue to provide the support that we always provided on campus, but now we can't see them face to face, and we're doing the phone calls and the reaching out and encouraging everyone as much as we can to continue with. We've only got a couple of weeks left now, so they've gone this far. Don't lose it now. Let's hang with it.
Yeah.
Through it. So that's our primary focus right now, is getting all of the students that we can through the semester, even with the struggles that they have and that we have all around us.
Sure.
For one thing, it's going to help in the fact that this will help assure that we will be able to get good, healthy food to our children. And that'll be done in numerous ways and their families. Some of it will be done through a backpack program. And some of it will be done where the families will actually come in, and there may be a couple teaching lessons on how to prepare really good, nutritious food. Another thing that we will be using it for too is through the summer. In the summer, we have a huge summer program that I don't think a lot of people are aware of. We have summer adventures, we call it, that runs 5 days a week. So we have children here, and that helps us assure that we will be able to make sure these children get good, healthy breakfast, a good, healthy lunch. On weekends, they're going to be sent home with stuff. So this grant I cannot tell you how thrilled I was, and as Father Jerry was, when I told him that we received this grant, because it'll help us assure that our children and our children's families get not only good, healthy food, but what is very native, like the wild rice and the maple syrup, and how to prepare that stuff. So that is what we will be using.
I would love to tell you a story about what I experienced this past summer doing mobile distributions. Like I said, we increased them just tremendously. And I'm always so proud of Northwest Minnesota and where we come from and the way people react in a crisis. And so we go into communities with our truck, and there's lines of cars. I mean, like hundreds of cars in line. And this is from small communities to big communities. It doesn't matter. There are cars in line waiting to get food. And this has all happened within the same day, within two communities, within 20 miles of each other. But the people here care and are trying to help and want to do stuff to help. So in the first community, a lady, she had to be in her 80s, could barely see over the steering wheel, pulled up to get a box of food. And she said she lived in a senior living apartment complex, and she had 18 neighbors. But she was wondering if maybe, and they all kind of needed help, but she was wondering if maybe she could get like 4 or 5 boxes to take back. And I said, well, I thought you said you had 18 neighbors. And she said, I do. I'm like, well, do they all need the food? And she said, yes. And it didn't take 2 seconds for one of the guys to pull his pickup up, load 18 boxes, and drive them back and bring them all to their doors. And then we went 20 miles away, and this distribution happened to be in a school. There was a lot of teachers helping. It was in the summer, so school wasn't in session, but there was teachers there, and there was kids there for various reasons too. And a bunch of the teachers were volunteering, and a couple of kids came out. And they're like, "Is this food for anybody?" And we're like, "Yes, absolutely, you can have a box." And they're like, "Oh, we're on our bikes." And I'm like, the boxes weigh like 40 pounds, and I couldn't see sending a child on a bike with a 40-pound box. I'm like, well, we're gonna have to come up with something. And it didn't. There was a teacher, she said, just wait here, pulled her Suburban over, loaded 5 kids in all the boxes they could take, drove them around town, dropped them off at their house, then brought the kids back so they could get their bikes. And I mean, this happens every day when we're out there doing it. And it just kind of just makes you remember why you live here, the way people are willing to help out and do good and make sure that their neighbors don't have to go to bed hungry. And, you know, we are so fortunate to work every day where we can help people make sure they have enough to eat.
Absolutely.
Susie Novak's story about community members stepping up to help others is a great segue to this, my last slide. Heroes come in many forms: medical professionals, first responders, local volunteers, community leaders, essential workers, and everyday people, working throughout the Northwest Minnesota region to support those in need. Presented by the Northwest Minnesota Foundation, the COVID Community Heroes campaign seeks out individuals and businesses throughout the region who are making an impact during these challenging times. Sharing their stories in an effort to spark meaningful conversation will help our communities rethink, rebuild, and recover. The COVID-19 pandemic spurred steep challenges and deep divides across the globe and across Northwest Minnesota. It also presented us with unique ways to support change through uplifting and inspiring acts of kindness. We watched people rally to help those in need, businesses banded together to aid their communities, collectively showing compassion and action when and where it was needed. Launching soon, we encourage both businesses and individuals to nominate those who have shown compassion in action throughout the 12 counties and 2 tribal nations in Northwest Minnesota. A committee will review, select, and share those who stand out on a rolling basis. Highlighting these hidden heroes throughout the Northwest Minnesota region, COVID Community Heroes seeks to recognize these heroic actions in hopes to emphasize what unites us rather than divides us. Thank you for joining us today. I want to encourage you to reach out to me or a staff member following today's presentation if you'd like to discuss anything further or discuss a potential new partnership. In closing, I want to once again offer a heartfelt thank you to all of our partners and donors. Your partnership really makes a difference and helps us to build better lives for those who call the region home. Wishing you all safety and good health.